Ooh, that's a lot of people.
Ooh,
Damn.
wow. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first Design Tokens online jam. I'm Sil from Into Design Systems. Hello, everyone in the stream. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us today. If you want to learn about design tokens, you are pretty much welcome. So I'm joined today by Marco Christian
Hello.
Krenn. He's a design tokens pro, design tokens architect, and currently graph engine wizard at Token Studio. Hi, Marco. You're joining us from basically near Vienna, right?
Yeah, in the deep forest, close to Vienna. I'm
Yeah.
just like not even getting up to like admit everybody is joining. Now I understand why you said this is like you need to press a lot of times.
Yeah, we need
Oh,
to press a
overwhelmed.
lot of times to let people in. So yeah. All
So,
right, Marco. So for everybody who doesn't know Token Studio, it's a very innovative company, making sure that design system people can have all the nice things. You probably know Figma tokens, now called Token Studio, and now they are working on a new product. So hi everyone, also from the Token Studio team, and feel free to join me in the Miro board. This is the link. Maybe you could also help me to share it in the chat. That would be super nice. So let's have a quick look at the agenda. There's a quick intro, and then there will be the Graph Engine Jam for about 55 minutes. And if you still have time, there will be more time for tinkering and Q&A. And we probably also have Jan Six, the creator of Figma Tokens plugin, now Token Studio plugin, showing us their new plugin, right, Marco?
it's not a new plugin. It's like a new thing, but it's not like
A
replacing
new
something
thing,
and new
not
thing.
a plugin, but a
No,
new
it's like
thing.
it is
Okay.
like something like that we were tinkering with kind of at the moment. So
a
yeah.
lot a lot of tinkering today. Okay.
Oh
Also,
yes.
this session will be recorded. I will send you a link afterwards, but please stay tuned because we will also take questions and want to have a nice casual online jam here. So there are also some useful links. Want to learn more about Token Studio, the graph engine. We also have a YouTube channel, upcoming events, and this kind of stuff. Speaking of upcoming events, we have a big online conference coming up in May. It's a 3-day design systems online conference. Marco, you're basically the head of tech of this conference. Anything nice you would like to say about this conference?
Well, actually, like it's I have a lot of positive things actually, like into design systems. Kind of the meetup we had in Munich back at Personio was kind of like a really like cool connection for me. Like when we met the first time, and like I met a lot of people like in real life, and actually like I really love these meetups. It's just so nice to like once in a while jam in real life with people on these topics, and not only be like yeah locked in some threads on some social media posts or something like that. So it's really cool. And the conference is always packed with stuff, to be honest. Like unfortunately, I'm always like while doing the tech not able to consume that much. So like I need like weeks afterwards. Sometimes I feel like to just like get like every talk and just watch them and really like get every information out of every talk. Like what's really like the essentials that I need to like still like adapt to or like learn and get better at. For example, like I'm really not the best one at governance. Governance. That's like not my strong side. I'm the like the algorithmic guy, right? Like there's other people
Yeah,
that do the community part really good.
we'll have some nice speakers talking about governance, design tokens, accessibility, Figma variables, developer handoff. And this conference is for design system designers, managers, and leads, but the content is pretty much advanced. So if you are senior or lead, this is kind of content you would learn a lot from, or if you want to get there. So feel free to have a look at the tickets. we have already sold 200 tickets. That's like our biggest launch ever. I just wanted to quickly show you how my inbox looks like. Like for the couple of last days, this was my inbox. That's crazy. Thank you so much, everyone, for getting a ticket. There are a few early bird tickets left, so hope to see you there. And also, we will host another workshop with Nate and Curtis. This one is taking place end of January, and this one is for people who want to learn how to plan, scope, and manage processes like a design system lead. It's a 2-day online workshop. All right, enough of upcoming events. So the way this works, like I told you, this session will be recorded. I will send you a link. And also, of course, you can ask questions. You want to keep it very casual. So you can also come live if you want. You can ask questions in the Zoom chat, or you can ask questions or leave questions here in the Miro board. And the cool thing about the Miro board is that the Token Studio team can basically come back and answer your question if there's not enough time to answer all questions. So I think if you ask live or put your question here in the Miro, it's a 99% chance that you will get a reply.
Yes, we will definitely take a look at the board, and like everybody from the team will like get back, or somebody from the team, not everybody will get back to you and have some answer for you, hopefully.
Yes. Also, there is the networking part. So the first step is to place your cursor here for a virtual high five. For attending this online jam. Thank you so much. And I think it's time to start with the jam, right? Should we start with the first question here, and then you can share your screen, Marco? So in your words, what are design tokens if you need to explain it to somebody?
Well, there's like we had one quote that we actually had in one of our presentations, which is design tokens are kind of like are storing the outcome of a design decision. So for us, the design token is the outcome of a design decision. Atlassian kind of described it a bit different. It's like the design decision, but in reality, it's only storing one specific state. So it's not kind of like covering like how did I get there or what did I do, but it's storing some information, probably for design. And that's kind of the thing that we need. We need design data, design tokens to have a more kind of like synced way of working with our developers, with design, and like in different medias. Let's not focus only on that. We also have marketing departments that can benefit from that. We have like our business units that also can benefit from design tokens by having kind of like adapted PowerPoint presentations that also work with our branding, and that not everybody is like sending out different style stuff all the time from our company.
Okay. And before you showcase the graph engine and people think like, what is this? Why is this even important? Why can't I just, create Figma variables and live a happy life and don't worry about this kind of stuff?
So depending on the scale, I would say you can do this. You can just create Figma variables and like work with them. If you don't need to have a proper handoff and sync back and have a bigger project that you're working on, right? Figma variables is still a quite good approach for the minimal approach. But the moment we scale on an enterprise or like business unit, right? And we need to sync with developers, they need to have the same data as we don't need to get out of sync. 3 months down the road and we changed something in design, development didn't come forward, some developer changed something and suddenly design and dev is out of sync. And you have a nightmare of like keeping everything up to track. And that's where design tokens really shine because they keep your work in sync and they make it easier for developers and designers to collaborate. So it is kind of like this collaboration that we need to emphasize with design tokens to make that possible.
Okay. And in Figma variables, are there any limitations like missing properties or any kind of stuff
Well, variables
coming
are
to your
not,
mind?
yeah, variables are not tokens. That's one thing that is clear. That's clear from side of Figma, right? That's clear from our side. They are different. There is the DTCG that's working on a standard for design tokens, and that is kind of worked on it, right? It's a community group working on it. I think even Kalik is in the chat here, and some other people from that DTCG group that are working on it would have seen it. And yeah, so these are like quite specific design tokens. What Figma does is it breaks that down into like basic things. We only have a color, a number, a Boolean, and a text, right? But the design tokens have way more. And it's tricky to sync them, kind of like, right? So if you have design tokens and variables, there's also like sometimes we get to ask the question, can we actually like move from variables to tokens? Yes, you can, but probably like on a loss of information because design tokens have more information than variables. Are better scoped. So what we can do with variables, for example, to scope them on a stroke or like to scope them on a text color, right? That is nice. It's cool that we have that in color. But for example, numbers, we already have a dimension that actually gives us a unit and a value that actually, there are a few things that tokens just do better and they are already quite established in that process.
Mhm. Cool. All right. I will ask more questions during your demo. I'll stop sharing now.
Ooh,
And
such a big crowd.
wow, yeah. So many people. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So cool to see so many people. Wow, that's like incredible. Oh my God. So many design tokens and design system practitioners and people who want to learn about this stuff. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Marco, let's have a look. Let's have a look at Graph Engine. I'm really, really curious to see how that works.
Okay, I would take a bit of time at the beginning before we jump directly into Graph
Okay.
Engine to speak about algorithmic design, because kind of that's the core of what we are talking about, right? How is the Graph Engine then evolving to an algorithmic design? So I have one question to the round, like how many of you are familiar with kind of like design tokens? And how many have used the plugin? So just maybe put a rocket emoji up there if you have used design tokens or the plugin of Token Studio plugin, something like that, right? That kind of like there. And then as a second question, I would actually love to know like how many of you have used math in your tokens? Did anybody actually like do this already? Like have multiplication in there, factorization, something like that? Because then you're already like doing algorithmic design, right? A lot of us are actually doing this under the hood. Maybe we didn't build the algorithm underneath, but we are using algorithms for a lot of things. And that's actually where I want to start and show you some of the tools that some of you might use today already. Some of you might have used at some point, kind of like back in the day. And just from there, when we establish what is algorithmic design, we can move forward into the graph engine, how we can build algorithmic tokens or tokens that are based on some algorithms for the outcome. Cool. So let me share my screen and tell me if it's not big enough. I will scale it up. I get this a lot. So share screen.
Yes, we can see it. And don't
Okay.
worry if you didn't understand anything. I will make sure to ask some questions to keep
Oh yeah,
this,
it's like
more
tune me down.
basic. Okay.
Yeah, always tune me down if you like percentage. So let me start with Proportio from Nate Baldwin. Maybe some of you have seen this, right? It's a tool that lets you create a proportional scale for typography, for iconography, type icon pairing, but also for shapes and components, kind of like, interestingly, yes, spacing and shapes. But yeah, so this creates some kind of scale, and we have the option to export them as tokens. So you already get tokens, unfortunately, in the old spec, but you get design tokens out of this thing. And I guess a lot of us have used something like this, right? Where we're using, for example, a major second scaling factor to create our font scale, right? So this is really giving us one base unit that we're using. This is maybe a design token, right? This is a fixed pixel value that we chose. 16 pixel is the common value we have as a RAM value as a base font size on each browser. So that's what most people start their pixel-based scale from. Don't know if actually like he changes that when I go to RAM. No, but like if we would choose RAM, we would have like 1 RAM here in that value. But how is this working, right? I can change my large sizes, I can change my small sizes. So I can just say, hey, actually, like I don't need 10 values here up. I only need like 6 values up. I don't have that many font sizes. But now that scale is maybe not strong enough growing for me, so I'm actually going to go with a major second, minor third, so 1.2. And I only changed one value, and by that my full typography changed. So under the hood, we're using here what's called the geometric series, kind of in math. So don't be too worried about that. Now we are in the math, but at the end, it's just multiplication by 1.2 to get to the value that you need, right? So by this, we get a lot of kind of like, oh, I hope I'm not getting this admit all the time on my screen now, but I guess so. So we get a like nice typography scale out of this. Same for icon scale. So this is kind of like a very, very good example of how we use math or algorithms to create our design tokens. What Nate here does, he has currently like a fixed format for the naming. So he names them text size 90, 80, 100, 200, 300. So that's fixed on this version, right? But now we used one tool to create this, right? And that's just typography. Let's move to another thing that we are always working on. And I know that nearly everybody is struggling with, which is colors. So probably one of the most loved and hated topics in the world, because it has so many things, so many buzzwords floating around and everything. Still, if there's any questions, right, like in chat. Also, I'm not watching that at the moment. I'll open it, but just scream at me, okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's use Atmos. That's a really cool color generation tool, kind of like it's a platform that lets you generate full color palettes, have a lot of tweaking, and I really like the tool. It like has a lot of functionality. It's like really good designed. Unfortunately, like it's behind a paywall. But other than that, it's like a really cool tool to create colors and have some information. So what this does is just like generate random colors, right? So if you press generate a few times, at some point we might end up with a color combination we like and that we're going to create from. So let's see. Well, okay, let's take this. Maybe there's some, well, yeah, let's take this one, okay? So I'm going to add all these colors to our palette now. So what we've now done is we're defining kind of, it's called Atmos. Maybe somebody can share the link. I think Mike is there. So let's add all these to our color, like to our palette. So what we just did is we actually defined our base tokens, right? For our branding, our primary color, maybe our secondary, here it's red, violet, our neutral, success, caution, danger, info. These semantic colors could actually already be based on some logic, right? They don't need to be dynamic. They could be like in correspondence with our primary or accent color to make sense. And now if we go to the shade generator, it gets interesting. Now we only have like these base colors, but we want to create shades. Let's say we actually want 15 shades kind of from that, and we're going to do linear interpolation of our colors. So let's just create that. And you can see how that suddenly created a linear scale from my colors. So now I have my palette ready to use. We could say. And what we did is actually like we just draw a curve or a line here, linear interpolation for the colors. And you can see actually the cool thing is like your base colors. That's actually the challenge everybody faces, right? Our base colors are not on the 500. That's never going to work. Like every color is on a different step. They have different luminosities, different saturations. That's just the reality we face. If you are in the luxurious position to have a 500 scale and you can just choose the hue and you don't need to worry about that, congratulations. Reality for most of us is different, I would say. We get like, brand comes to us, this is our 5 colors we have, use them, please. Doesn't matter if it's like a very bright orange and a very dark navy, or yeah, some other combination that you're like, these really don't match up in our scale, so what can we do? But if we do this, like, we can also go with an ease in, ease out curve. So suddenly we're doing a cubic Bezier curve. Some of you might know this from animation, right? Bezier curves we use sometimes, and actually place it on that. So that scale changed. And I can also say, hey, I actually don't want to do this in LCH. I want to use OKLCH as a color space. And there's a few color spaces that are very hyped at the moment, like OKLCH or OKHSL. Some people, for example, are waiting for Google's new HCT, I think. Don't point me on that. But yeah, now I can say, okay, actually create this on this scale. You can see, okay, maybe Atmos has some problem here. Not going to work that well, right? So yeah, let's go back to LCH. And then we can also say like, hey, actually, what gamut are we working in? So we might work just on mobile. We could actually make use of color display P3. So if we try working on mobile only devices, we could use an extended gamut. It's also very interesting. How do brands behave when we have extended gamuts? So yeah, we could create that and go scale again. And now I want to show you the playground, because this is actually where it gets interesting now. And this is an overwhelming screen at first, because it's like, oh, fuck, what is this? But at the end, it's quite nice to see where we are, right? We can have each step on that scale. So let's select our primary color. And we can see how our lightness is actually sampled through our full color. We can see how it's actually like changed between the different colors. We can see how our chroma is sampled, kind of. So we could actually do chroma adjustment here. And we can see how the chromas of the different colors are spaced kind of like over scale. And we can see the hue adjustment. Cool thing here is actually I can use keyboard shortcuts to actually adjust this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I can actually navigate the palette up and down and do some fast adjustments. It's an amazing tool, but what happens if I created my logic once and 2 months down the road, that company shuts down and my full like color logic was actually stored there in this kind of closed format and I lost it and I have no idea. The second person comes in, like after you maybe, and gets a color palette that's fixed values. He has no idea how it was created. He has no idea, like if the brand comes in, it's like, hey, we need to adjust the value. How do we actually do this, right? How can we follow the same principle and get a scale? And then the guesswork starts, right? So we have a loss of knowledge in our company because we didn't document our design decision properly. Any questions so far? Kind of like on that algorithmic approach? None so far? Okay, good.
Which
Yeah.
approach would you recommend if I'm like a design system designer just starting out? Is this like what would you recommend?
What I recommend is like first try some tools that really help you find what you want to build, right? Building algorithmic things is like something, okay, color theory by itself is a topic where you can go very, 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 very deep. I think there's a few people in the audience that have like went down that rabbit hole and back up again. Um, it's just the amount of color spaces we have, understanding them, kind of like I actually have one page here which I would love to share because it's something I love to share with our team. It is an amazing thing to actually like just visualize how color spaces look like in 3D. So this is hue plot, kind of. I'll actually like post that link shortly that everybody can take a look later. And what this page allows me is to visualize 3D objects or spaces, kind of like, or like actually color spaces in 3D, sorry, to get that. It actually lets me also visualize how other gamuts look like. So the interesting one, if we look at RGB, and now we're gonna enable our P3 gamut, we can see how the P3 gamut is actually like way bigger than our regular RGB space, right? How it's like extending massively in the greens, kind of like where we have way more information. And then it's the cool thing, I can see how other color formats look like. So HSL is something that we use a lot, kind of. Let me turn off the P3 again. And you can see like RGB is a cube. It's a vector 3. So we have red, green, and blue. These are the 3 vectors on the bottom here that go from dark black to blue to green and to red, and then up again to white. So that's how you actually sample a color. You need the 3 dimensions. The same goes for HSL. Just on HSL, it's our hue rotation. So we're actually setting the rotation of where we want to sample our color, and then you get like a nice gradient that you have in the color picker, right? But it's just like on one hue level. And that's where color gets interesting. The moment you have hue shifts, you're suddenly not moving in 2 dimensions. You start to move in 3 dimensions. And that's kind of like where things are very interesting. Let me see if actually like, is it on this one? Fette Palette? No, okay, that's a different one. I was thinking. David has some nice visualizations of the rotation colors. But yeah. So if you go back to that kind of, this is how we sample things. And that's where it gets really, really, really complex. So yeah, just there. Somebody just mentioned Super Palette, an amazing tool, already gives you cool variables at the core. But yeah, it's a Figma plugin. So yeah. Yeah, also Kaleek has some cool tips. Good. Now we talked a lot about everything around it, and we talked a lot about like why these things are there, and OKLCH. And then I also want to show one of, which is there it is, OKLCH. And then we get into OKLCH, which is this hype one. And you can see that might not be too easy to handle if you don't understand how it works, because this looks a bit weird, right? So suddenly your kind of like chroma is not linear. It's not like 0 to 100 or 0 to 1. This one is actually 0 to maybe 25 or 37 or, yeah, 12. So you don't know the chroma value in that. So it's a bit of something to think about when you work in different color spaces. So I would just like give everybody a tip, go here, look at different color spaces, look at color spaces like CI, E, XY, kind of like, they don't make sense to a human per se. They're not like something you should use in consumption. Okay, so we talked about this. All of this is kind of like algorithmic. Yeah, it actually is Fette Palette. It's in German name or Swiss name. Okay, let's go to this one here, to our graph engine. So what is the graph engine? Some of you might have seen some peeks or sneaks of it, kind of like some have already challenged on LinkedIn, kind of like what it does. At the end, what the graph engine is, it's like a tool that lets you store your design decision in a format, kind of like that you can repeat. So most of the times when we are talking about design decisions or design, we talk about a single token, which we said we just sampled our color palette, kind of like, and we had like this hard-coded tokens in there. But actually, we don't know how we got there, right? We have an external tool that we use that creates something that we can put there, but really expressing the algorithm behind it is quite hard. And we can't go deeper into the tool, right? The source code is locked. So up front, this is the beta of the graph engine. It's a technology we develop in-house at HEMA, which is the company behind Token Studio. This will stay open source forever. You can contribute, you can extend. When you miss some nodes, it's very easy to add a node in there. And you can always execute your graphs. So you're not going to have some problem with in the future if like, hey, Token Studio doesn't exist anymore. How do I actually like execute it? Open source project, you're safe. If you have your logic stored in a JSON file, which this saves kind of, you can repeat it and you can extract the information. It's also very nice to just like go through the graph and understand what happens. So that's an amazing thing.
Okay.
Graph engine like
Does
this is absolutely free.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
Does
No,
this
go.
also mean that I can also use it with different tools or import stuff in Figma and Penport or anything else?
So this is kind of standalone, right? There's no connection in it built in, kind of like that. It really is the graph engine standalone. This is also a playground. There will be some nodes. At the moment, I don't think we actually removed them, but you see here play and stop pause control. You can build audio stuff with that graph engine too if you want. You can build other things with it. You can do image manipulation. At the end, it's just a really, really lightweight graph engine that you can build on top. So that's the nice thing. Yeah. And graph engine exports, Mike just wrote it, DTCG tokens. So at the end, the output of that graph engine can be tokens that are DTCG conform. So that's a really cool thing. Did this answer the question? I hope.
Yes.
Okay, cool, perfect. So let's start very, very simple and just go through the UI a bit, and I'll introduce you a bit more into that. But we just said, okay, I actually have like a token. Let's break it down to a simple number and math. So just gonna get like a constant here. And let's say we actually, oh man, that scaling doesn't work that well here. So let's say we have a fixed 12, right? That could be our font scale, or let's say like 16 or 20. Yeah,
Okay,
16
wait.
kind of like, yeah.
What
Yes,
is
yes.
What is a constant?
Now it gets actually
I will
constant.
ask many beginner questions, okay?
I think Sam is also in the channel and she will tell you she's working on names that work for designers because at the moment it's very development heavy. So you will get better names. But like Sam is currently actually working on that. And I know that she's going to find better names. A constant is just a fixed value that we have. It's a variable. It's a token at the end, right? Let's say like this. It's not really a token. It is the core variable. It's just doesn't have any information around it. It's just 16, nothing else in type number. So what we set is the type of it, and this is very close to development. Constants are not going to be used that much, but you're going to use them from time to time when you say, hey, that's actually like a fixed value. I'm not going to change this at all. I know this division is always by 2, kind of like, then you're going to use a constant or a fixed value in it. But let's imagine we wanted to have a formula behind it, right? And let's say this is a math equation. Let's say it's like adding twice the x height of our font to get there. Something like that, right? And yeah, So let's also enable inline previews and types. Man, this is a strong contrast. So we can see this is a number type port kind of, and it has a value of 16. So maybe this wasn't a fixed decision. Maybe this was the outcome of some thought process we had, where we said, hey, I actually like wanted to take math kind of like, and let's do just a simple add, right? That we get the same thing. And maybe that was kind of like, hey, adding 8 and 8 together, and we got 16. So now that we stored our logic, which was just an add, but I can actually say, let's make a multiply here, and I'm gonna add something more. So you can see there's tons of nodes, and I have to explain the interface a bit more. Let's say we have 8 and 2, and the outcome of this is 16. So suddenly we know, hey, there's actually 2 constants we used for that, which was maybe our spacing by 2 or something like that, right? Could be some information that we used to repeat this decision. And maybe there's even some more, right? Like maybe that wasn't the full game. Maybe that was just like 2 by 4. Oops. 4. And then there's another thing here, which is like a power function. Just got to do a bit more. Then we got to 64.
Okay. Can you tell me about like
Yeah.
what would be a good example for this? Is this usable for spacing or typography or what?
It's
what's
usable
the outcome?
for everything, kind of like. So that's the
Okay.
thing, right? We need to understand the core of what we are doing to get to the outcome. So I can show you how you get to your quant scale, but just in a second, okay? Let me just explain the basics. So we now have a repeatable decision, right? That we can follow along. So if I change that input from 4 to 2, it suddenly did the calculation, right? It's just doing a math equation and getting the result. But my 16 stays kind of here, right? That is just a fixed value. But here I stored like what was the decision that I got to the 16. So now we're gonna do what proportio has, okay? So just gonna go shortly back to proportio. In proportio, we're having a base font size of 16. We have a scale of 1.2. We do 2 sizes down and 6 sizes up. Okay, that's the math equation. In Graph Engine, kind of we can do this as a formula or as a series actually. So you would need to understand this is a geometric series. And we actually have this here. So I have a 16. I think we said like 2 steps down and we had 7 steps up and our ratio was 1.2. So now I actually get my scale. It's not rounded, kind of like, so that's what we can do here. The precision is 0 because we're using pixels, so we don't want to have this full complexity. So what I did now is kind of like I just have this geometric series, and from that geometric series, I can make a repeatable decision. The interesting thing is, right, our base font size could change. Maybe we want to actually like use 20 pixels font size on desktop and 16 on mobile, but we still want that scale to work for us, right? So let's change it to 20. That's it. And all the values are recalculated. They're not tokens yet. They're still just numbers. So that's what we're going to work on soon. But just to get a bit of the basic understanding. So what we did is we actually have a logic that is now repeatable, and we can adopt to the different things in that scale. We could say, hey, on desktop, we actually have more space, right? Maybe the base stays the same, but our scaling actually is a bit bigger and grows stronger because we have more sizes, more space to actually grow our headlines. We can use this. And that's the core. And now we need to do something with this, right? We want tokens out. So how do we make our life easier? And just going to make this for you that you have an understanding. That's where we go into arrays. So some of you might know what an array is, some not. An array is a list of items, of elements. So it is just a list of things that we do something with. So what we have at the moment is just these numbers. They are type number. They can't be used kind of like somewhere already because they're just numbers. But we want to have the token out of it. So what we want to do is for each of these numbers, we want to create a design token. So we're going to add an array map. The array map does exactly what I told you. It's going to iterate through that list, and for each item in that list, it's going to do an action. So that's going to be where our subgraph explorer comes in. So we have some logic that we want to do for everything, and that's where it gets like really annoying when we work with design tokens on a daily basis, right? Have you ever needed to update your type scale or your spacing scale? I hate it, to be honest. It's the worst experience if it's not based on simple values and you have to go through this like maybe like 4 breakpoints, like 50 values. It's just something to scream about. So we're going to do this now. We click this button. I'm in my array map. In this array map, I now have my value, index, and length of the array, and my output. So let us start from the back to make you understand how this works. We have the design tokens section here. So shortly on the left, this is all our nodes. On the right, input, output. We go to this a bit sooner. And now we actually need our create design token. We're going to pop this in here, and we're going to connect it already to the output. So now we know this is there, and now we can create a token. We are working on dimension, so let's add the dimension. Klig is here. Like this dimension is still following the old spec. It doesn't have like unit and value separated. We add this soon, promised. And what I also have here is naming nodes. So there's a few helpers that we already built in kind of to make it easier for you to build namings. For example, a numeric scale or a t-shirt size or hierarchical level, Greek letters, alphanumerical. What I just want to do is kind of like t-shirt sizes just to have fun, kind of. And I know I don't have my base index here, but I'm going to set it to 2 because I know the offset is 2. And we're going to map our index to the index here. And then we already got our 6XL on the last value. So that already works. So I'm just going to put that on my name. So I have already a name for my token, which is 6XL as a dimension token. We could already add a prefix for it. So I could say dimension dot. So it's already grouped. And now we need to work on the value to get that into the value. And now something interesting. Here we have different types, number and string. There's a V1 of the graph engine which didn't have strong typing. That led to a lot of issues. So at the moment there is strong typing in there, which we want to persist, but we want to make it easier for you in the future to use it. But at the moment you need to do some manual steps to convert it now into a string from a number. So in the string, we can actually do a stringify and change that number into a string. Still looks the same, different format under the hood. So just as a heads up. And now I just want to do one thing. I actually want to give this a unit. And I know at the beginning you're like kind of like, oh damn, where do I find all of this? Takes a few days to get into Graph Engine, but once you have a hand of it, you'll see why you love it. I can tell you that much. Okay, so we have like our logic. We add pixels, we add a name, and now we can actually go outside, have that graph, run it once, and I messed up my interface. Okay. Let me reload and upload the graph again. Sorry for that. Yeah, show effect as always, right? Okay, there it is. Sorry for that. Yeah, but it works. So as you can see on the bottom here, I already have my dimension tokens. And that's fast as that, right? They're based on medium, 16 pixels. So, but let's say we change the pixel value, right? Which would be manual work. But now I'm changing 20 and my tokens are already updated. Because I've built a repeatable logic that I can do over and over again. So I don't need to every time start building the scale again and work on it. And if I say, hey, I actually like don't need 7 steps up, but actually like, well, 12 steps up. Yeah, okay, good. Done. You have 12 steps, probably not with that scaling factor. I hope you don't use 291 pixels dimension. We also have some small preview nodes that I want to bring in here. So there's a dimension scale now. Let's drag it in, toggle the preview, and we're gonna dock this at the bottom here. And now we can actually see how this works. And I can easily go in here. Man, I'm not used to this interface and that scaling. And change this back to 16. Or let's say our base is maybe 12 kind of like. And you can see how that these tokens automatically adjust to this input. So that's maybe one point to kind of like just think about like, okay, why and how kind of like is this useful for me? I hope a few of you already see the use in it. Some of you might not, but still you had one more question on the board, which maybe is a good point to think about now, which is your AI question kind of.
Yeah.
So
first of all, thank you for the demo.
Yeah,
before like before we continue, I would like to ask, like, why did you choose like this node editor interface for design tokens, or how did you come up using node editor as an interface for design tokens?
So there's a few node editors already out in the world, and node-based is just a thing that is really scalable. So maybe some of you have worked with your developers and you have heard like GraphQL as a word, kind of like graph-based database is kind of like we know vectorization in AI, kind of like all of these topics, right? Graphs are something that scales very, very well up, kind of like it's very easy to add a decision. So somebody just asked the question, can we do a 4-pixel grid? Just going to show you this in a second, how easy it is now to change that to 4-pixel grid. So the cool thing is the iterating. How we got there is we actually looked at different things of inspiration. The core problem which we faced was the explosion of tokens. So if we look at a bigger project, you might have brands, you might have different densities, you might have different color modes, different appearances, right, that you select. You might even have different languages or regions that actually affect the color choices that you use or the contrasting algorithm that you want to use. So maybe in the US, we want to use WCAG 2.2, and in Europe, we want to use APCA or the other way around. So all of these are different effects, right? But if we combine this in tokens and we don't have any logic underneath, it gets really, really hard and just explodes, and the management is not possible anymore. So that's what we faced. We faced millions and millions of tokens because, yeah, I mean, like, I think Spectrum has a nice article about that, how their tokens actually exploded. And if you look at Adobe Spectrum's kind of like design system, you see like how many tokens they really have. And they don't have that many dimensions, to be honest. They only have like 2 platforms and 2 breakpoints, I think, but it's already exploding like crazy. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are you also working on some tutorials or any kind of startup
Absolutely.
templates?
There's a few
Because
startup templates that are there
to be
available,
honest,
kind of.
it's
Yeah.
still very complicated. But I
So
love the output, but I don't know how to get
how to
there.
get there? Absolutely agreed. So what I'm gonna like what we are doing like forward from February on is kind of like we're gonna have weekly sessions on Graph Engine with like tutorials on different topics and like going deeper and like just basics, just like going through every element in our nodes tree. What is in the accessibility? What is in color? What is in CSS? What are the curves to? And all of these will be like at least 1 to 2 hour workshops because they are very extensive what you can do with each of these single topics. So there will be a lot of content for that. But this also shows like if you dig into this, you can do really a lot with it already.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Do you by any chance have any example ready with like more nodes or like so we can see?
Oh yeah, we can jump in a second into the color.
Yeah.
But I just want to show you one thing because like that question I
Mm-hmm.
really love, like 4-pixel and 8-pixel grid. Personally, I hate it. Okay. Like I don't think it makes any sense from a human perspective to work with 4 pixels, except for the ease of use for developers. But if they use a semantic value, they don't need to care about the pixel value behind it, right? But why do we need to jump 4-pixel steps? It's like absolutely, yeah, like I haven't found like the logical way to that. Okay, but like the easy thing is now we have our graph, right? And I'm just gonna pull this a bit over here. And there's a nice node in math which is called snap. So I'm just gonna drag this over. And a snap node means it's snapping to one of the values that you give it. So here I have increment of 2. We said 4 pixels, right? So 4 pixels. You can also say if it's round, floor, or seal, kind of like what it's using. You can also define the base. So we're just going to add that value as the value. We can turn to take the snap value, put it there, back to our graph, execute it once. And if I introduced a bug today, I'm so sorry. Let me reload and upload it. It will work. Oh man. Okay, that's like something I added today. Okay. Values T. So if you look at the scale now, kind of on our left, or actually let me drag the preview node in again. Oh, it's
What
actually there. Sorry. Yeah.
what do you mean by what you have added today? So you are basically developing this tool.
I also like I'm one of the contributors because like it is fairly easy to add new nodes, and I just add new nodes, everything. We are just this preview panel is currently POC that we added, so that's actually what messed it up, most likely. To give you a visual preview of like what you're working on. So this, for example, like shows me, oh, okay, this is not really growing nicely suddenly in the cubes here if you have this visualization. because it's snapping to a 4-pixel grid. We have 4 pixels now. So that's something that that is there. But you saw like, okay, I didn't need to change anything there. I really got my tokens working in seconds, kind of like by snapping to 4 pixels. I didn't need to rewrite 20 tokens. I didn't need to do anything there. So this was a very, very fast approach to get there.
So can I now also push some there's a question, can I push
Yeah,
only
yeah.
certain token sets, themes to GitHub or GitLab, thinking of multi-brand white labeling and such? So can I now export this stuff and push it to GitHub, or
Yeah.
what's the
So
plan now that I have the structure?
yeah, you have a download button here, right?
Okay.
Kind of like, so you could save this in your format. I'm currently in an editor where I didn't create a new graph. You can just download it. So yeah, download it and you have your token set. Let me just open it. Oops. We'll open my VS Code. That is, I think, verifying. Nice. Okay. And it's not formatted, but yeah, you get your design token spec tokens out of it immediately. Just one click. That is when you use the standalone version. You don't need to use the standalone version in the future. There's some email that was circulating. There's some rumors going on, right? This is a standalone graph engine. We've been working on something where this is integrated, right? Studio platform. And there, this is fully integrated. So for example, I just opened like this one dummy graph here in Studio. And this is having my font sizes in here. And if I switch, you can see this is again using font size F1 to F12. And if I go to my table, I already have my static tokens here that I can reference, that I can use in my full system. So just a little sneak peek to the Studio platform where you can use this in conjunction with static sets. So you can pull in a static set as a source, take the graph, add some more logic on top for your semantics, and then use them further on in your thing. You can adjust them by your color mode and everything.
And can I also sync it with Figma?
Sure. I mean, like not from the graph engine alone.
or what's the approach now? Now
the
I've
approach now
built
is really
this.
that you have like
Maybe I've built this kind of thing, and now I want to use it somewhere in Figma or sync it with Figma.
So the current version, which I did also for quite some time, is like I'm just copy pasting this one. So I'm going here, copy value, kind of, and pasting that into my JSON in my plugin, kind of like, and it's done. That's what I used quite some time. With the Studio platform, this is all synced, right? I don't need to worry about these topics, kind of like. But since this is kind of like the open source technology where we don't have all the syncs and it's completely free to use, you need to jump some hoops, right? to get there and then like do this. But at the end, like if you have your logic stored, this is quite easy to do. You copy it, you commit it to your repo, you're done. You can also add the JSON file from, as I just downloaded, right? You can also add your JSON from your graph to your repo to load it back in if you want. Okay. So you wanted to see something more advanced?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, show us the most advanced example you have. I thought this is already advanced because I'm not a programmer, but I think it's worth like to become a design engineer or something like that with AI. And
so you can see I'm working on a few like little things. So if you're like open the graph engine for the first time, you will be prompted to log in with your GitHub account. That allows you to save the graphs kind of like to the storage here, and you can use them and open them. I'm just going to open my color scale here, and
wow,
this color scale doesn't look that heavy at the moment.
No. Easy.
It's just the tip of the iceberg. But if we looked at these color tools before, right? They do really, really a lot in the background. So, okay, like what's really happening in the background, I'll show you in a second. Because you can see there's like Subgraph Explorer again, which means there's something hidden underneath this kind of like thing. But I just want to talk in my preview because what this does here is, oops, let's dock it down here. This is a logic I've come up with to build my color scale.
Wow.
Based on sampling some curves. So if we look at that here, oh man, this small interface. You can see there's like a definition of how many color steps I want, in what color mode I want them. There's like a lightness curve that is drawn. So what we're doing here is we're sampling on a curve that is actually drawn for the lightness. There's a default chroma curve that is actually adjusted later. There's output format. There's some chroma start and chroma end points in vector 2. And then there's some tokens. that I use for the input. So up here, there's like 2 inline token sets for light and dark. What we do in our set is we actually just switching the neutral color. Here, kind of like, as you can see in light, our neutral is a dark black, kind of like nearly, and in light, it's actually quite bright gray. And the cool thing is, I have some inputs here, right? So let's switch it to light. And my scale on the bottom switched because it has a
Oh,
repeatable
that's
logic.
cool.
And let's say, well, like that's not working, right? We actually need 25 steps. So let's do 25 steps. So I have 25 steps here. Kind of, that's too much. Okay, let's go back to 11, right? Makes more sense, maybe.
Let's do 100.
Well, we can do. You want performance testing? I mean, like UI testing will not work, but you get 100 steps. So you can see how performant the graph engine is, right? This is like live executed. I didn't do anything, right? Like that's just like executing. The biggest problem we have with rendering here is actually the UI because it's starting to break by the DOM tree that you're rendering. So it's not like the graph engine is executed in like 20 milliseconds, nothing there, kind of like. But let's go back to 11 steps, or let's say 15, kind of number that I like. What I really like at that scale I've built, it is a color persisting scale. What this means is kind of like this scale is dynamically drawn, but it persists the input color. So as you can see, I have a base color of like 7034 EA, and that's our 1200. In neutral, my base is my 1500. In success, it is my, where is it? Here, my 800. But it's always there in the scale. So that's something I really wanted to achieve. Have a scale that's balanced between all colors, but keep the brand color persistent in it. There's something where, like if we switch to dark mode, the brand color will not be persistent because I have some logic that a lot of people do, right? Which is desaturating the color in dark mode to have not so vibrant colors. So what this does is actually reduce the saturation by 20% in dark. So that's there. But where's the benefit of having like this very, very big logic? The benefit is the repeatable logic. So now we have like our 6 colors as input here. I have one set here, which is my torture set, which shows me that my logic is not yet finished. And as you can see, there's colors that you don't want to see in brand picking, right? You don't want to see these super subtle brand colors that should be there. You don't want to see like very, very dark ones. You don't want to have like too vibrant colors normally. But like, yeah, let me just drag this in. We are on light. So I'm just going to replace the input color. And there will be a small UI lag or it will crash. Let's give it a try. Okay, it works. So now you can see that's it. I just connected the new tokens and all of them are already named with success, info, warning, danger. They're already there. It just worked out of the box. But maybe we want to ship to a different format, right? It's going to be looking ugly because it's way longer. But maybe let's say we are shipping to Android so we can actually use P3. Yeah, that's it. Done. So it would be one switch you do and you can ship to a completely different platform. But the logic stays the same. Maybe just by a little toggle of theming by platform, you change how the output format is created.
Nice. That's so cool. Amanda also asked if we can somehow implement some accessibility logic to this.
Perfect. So you can see this is my scale. Probably like when I now go in a subgraph, it will break again. I hope it's not. But like, okay. Yes, you can absolutely integrate accessibility here. I can show you. I actually like didn't add this to the scale at the moment. But there's like, okay, you wanted to see how this works, right? There's like a lot of logic going on. There's a lot of subgraphs here. So I'm going into another subgraph and here I'm doing my logic thing. There's one node which is called contrasting color. This node works super easy. You have two on colors, A and B, and a background color. And by an algorithm, it chooses which color goes on top. So I hope I'm not breaking this UI again. I'm really sorry for that bug. But I just added like my token. So this is actually like choosing which color works and putting this token with an on in front into my set. So if we go back and execute this, boom. Yeah, I'm gonna break it again. Okay, let me download and upload again. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah.
Any chance, so will you also provide this file, or can we?
Yeah, this is like I can share the link to that in a second,
plan?
kind of like. So yeah, as you can see, we just connected this on color, and now I have like for each of the steps my on colors ready. There was 5 nodes involved, but that's it. They are contrasting on APCA, and I could just change the algorithm behind it.
Nice. That's
So,
amazing.
and you stay accessible. So if you think this a bit forward, using this for your semantics already, where you can dynamically choose, hey, which color do we need on our semantic layers? That's also the strong side. So yeah, and this still works with all the changes, right? So now I can show you I changed one thing. We can change the input. Again, we're gonna say like, hey, this is actually not like 15 steps again. Let's take just 10. Works all there.
Nice. That's so cool.
So yeah.
We'll make sure that people get a link to these files, right?
Yeah, so let me just like copy that.
We can do that afterwards as well. I will include it in the mail.
Perfect. Okay.
Mike also asked if you can show V1. We are almost like at the end of the hour. Not sure if you have other examples or.
I don't know. Is Jan in the room actually? That's the big question.
Yeah, Jan 6.
Let's see if we can.
Here.
There is a Jan 6 in the room.
Hi. Yeah.
Ooh.
Hi, Jan. Welcome. Nice.
So a famous face just showed up, and I just showed it a color graph, right? And Jan will now show you a bit like how this works in studio in connection with something we've come up with. And I'm gonna stop sharing and give him the stage probably for a few minutes. Yeah, Jan, go ahead. You're still muted. Yeah.
Still muted. Yes. I hope my audio is somewhat okay. I only have my AirPods here. Cool. I'm going to get started and share my screen. So I will not go too much into the details of what Marco just shared with the graph itself, but I'm going to show you how you can use that inside Figma. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So I'm in a project here in Studio, in the Studio app, basically, where we are looking at a core set. And this core set has a few colors defined, like info, accent, danger, and all of these. It's, I think, following the same logic that Marco was just showing. So we have that. It's based on this graph. So there is some logic going on, which takes the results of this token set here, called core, and then extracts stuff and basically does stuff and as part of this more complex logic that's hidden away. So
sorry,
any
could you
tokens that we
zoom
have
in?
here.
Can you zoom in a little bit,
quite
please?
small, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. But the graph
so
we
we
already
have...
looked at. That's exactly the same graph that we just looked at, right? So that is similar. There's just some additional things that we did in this graph, but at the end, it's just doing the same thing. And additionally, calculating our semantics. So maybe, Jan, if you want to move a bit to the right and select one of the array maps there, kind of like the array flatten, then we can see actually that this is calculating. Ooh, yeah. This is not only calculating the scale, but it's also calculating our semantics. Kind of like, so it's using APCA to select contrasting colors on top of every background color. So if you know what surface logic means, this is surface logic that automatically calculates that. Yeah.
Right, so it's kind of taking the tokens that are a part of another set, this one, and then performs dynamic logic based on them. And now what we really want to do is we want to get all of these tokens, and there's quite a few, into Figma as variables. That's our main goal. So what I'm doing is I'm going to jump into Figma here, and I have this new plugin that we have open called Companion by Token Studio. I'm actually in the wrong file here, so let me jump over to the other one. So this is the companion plugin, and it's showing me the same tokens that we just created. We have the info tokens, we have two modes because we have two themes. So if we jump back, we have the light and dark one, and we have themes set up, color mode, light and dark, and there's a foundation one here as well. So this maps back to these collections, color mode and foundation. This is again just showing me the core tokens that we have there. And in color mode, we can see these two modes, and each of these would show us the different values that we have. I have this thing open here, and I already created some variables. I could now make changes to these tokens from within Studio here. So let me actually change something. I'm going to go ahead and change the info, or maybe the accent one, from red to, let's say it's a blue value, hit save. And then what I want to do is I want to update all of these variables that are here to the new values. To do that, I can fetch these tokens from Studio, hit the button, wait for the things to come in. Should actually already be visible in a bit. So now it's changed to blue. If I hit create again, everything is updated. Like all of these variables that we had created before, and I'm going to jump into how you can create from the get-go, is updated. So there should be an accent piece here, which is now all using the blue values based on the scale that Marco had created. I didn't really have to update much, just this one token. you can imagine this as creating variables like that, like just quickly changing things, but you could also run this on the side and explore what would be the right values. To do that, you likely don't want to jump between Studio and Figma all the time, because it's likely time consuming to go back and forth. But you probably just want to stay inside Figma. That's also what we made with the main Token Studio for Figma plugin, where you can be in Figma to explore and play around with values. So what we offer is a way to auto refresh and auto update things whenever something changes. So we can move this, and I hope it's big enough. It's quite small at the screen at the bottom. There is a little notification going on telling you that we are monitoring changes. So if we go into the file again and jump into the core piece and are changing the blue from the accent again over to, let's make it a green this time, hit save, come back to Figma, it would, after we have looked at the changes, update everything for us. And it automatically had the right contrast. If you look at the colors here, actually, let's make this a bit darker to see that in effect. If we use a very dark green, hit save, it should use the right accessible contrast color for the foreground based on that background value. And so this one is using white, this one as well, I guess, but it kind of flipped it around automatically. I didn't really have to change much. So this works fine. Another really cool feature of this is that you don't have to go to Studio to make that work. So you can just stay inside Figma. And as I mentioned, we have these variables here that act as the source, or we have these tokens here that act as the source for the graph. But at the same time, we have variables here that are the same. So we have info, accent, and all of these. This is not the green value. If I change this over to a red in Figma, I'm still in there. I want this to update the graph as well. I kind of don't want to go back into Studio to make these changes, but I just want to use the decision that I made here to inform my graph automatically. Like all of these dynamic decisions, I want those updated. To do that, we added a import variables from Figma piece where you can use the variables that you have to be saved back to Studio. And by doing that, we automatically rerun the graph and give you all of the updated tokens again. So if I hit this button, what we will see is that this value will change over to the new red that we have in a moment and automatically update the color as well. And as you've seen, we automatically recreated all variables. So just by me changing a variable inside of Figma to a value like this one, hitting import, we change the graph, or the graph's source gets changed, and we can recreate variables based on that to create a whole bunch of variables. If I wanted to, I could also quickly demo a new file. There's this other project that I have called Foundations. I can basically switch this and see all of my different projects that I have there. I'm going to jump into the Foundations one, and there is no variables created so far. This one has two modes, like a bunch of colors. Actually, I think that's 1,500 or so. Some of them are defined in P3. Some of them are hex-based, so we can see some colors over there. We have this mode for the two modes, and we have the semantic one just showing me some tokens for primary. Just very quickly switching over to that one in here so you can see how that is set up. We have the static set, which has all of these 1,500 tokens. And we have the graph, which is a very simple graph. Like this is kind of my scale of complexity. It has a very simple scale node. So all of the complexity is actually hidden away for you. So you don't have to worry about all of this if you don't need it. You could, but still that's giving us a nice little scale. So if I jump over to the table, you can see there is some color tokens created, but you could go crazy. If I now jump in here and I want to create variables, I just have to hit the create button and it does things for me. And you can see how this populates 1,500 variables created. The semantic one is created as well. Again, if I want to make a change to one of those, I could just jump in here and change the base input to a red and hit save, go over there, fetch tokens again, and it will then automatically create for me. So the semantic one is now all red for me. And again, I could watch this in watch mode and see it update my tokens in real time. Yeah.
And the great thing that we should add is this is still design tokens under the hood, right? This can be transformed with style dictionary to developers. It's not variables, it is still tokens. It's just an export into variables.
Actually, we are using Style Dictionary to create the variables from Studio into a token format, which we then use to create variables. So it's using the same structure under the hood as well.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thank you so much, Jan. That's like really, really so cool to see you're working on the future of design, right?
Yeah, I think it's quite exciting to see how that also maps back to how we can actually use this. And for me, who's like working in more simple graphs, I would say, it's really beneficial to have somebody like Marco or some expert on this field to create these scales, so I don't have to recreate that. And that's also one of the goals that we have with bringing some of these graphs into something like a marketplace or a reusable piece, so more people can benefit from the thoughts that people put in, and we can then reuse all of that. Like imagine being able to reuse all of the color scales that other people have created and have put many hours of thinking into. But then you could just use it with a click of a button.
Wow. Yeah, it's really incredible to see like how far you have come after creating the Figma tokens plugin during lockdown, I think, as a one-person plugin creator. That's really, really incredible to see, Jan, and the Token Studio team. It's really epic to see what you're working on, really, like, and the progress and everything. Really cool. Just wanted to tell you.
It's a huge team effort. Like all of this is basically not me. So I'm really just the one benefiting from all of the work that so many people have put in.
Hey, let's put the CEO on stage. He's in the room, right? Let him talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, thank you to the HEMA team, the company behind Token Studio, and Mike and Sam answering questions in the chat. So there is one question like people have. It's like where to start learning about, like, are there any tutorials or examples, or like, this looks incredible, but I have no idea where to start.
Keep an eye out for us.
I now know what a constant is. That's it.
Cool. No, keep an eye out for our social media channels. Kind of like we're gonna update like on YouTube. We do live streams, regular live streams on that topic, right? So we really like have a focus on upscaling people to be able to do these things. Kind of like that is one of the main goals we have this year, that everybody is able to build graphs and like understands them and keeps this knowledge repeatable and working.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think we can end the official part of this jam. Thank you so much, Marco, for this incredible demo. And thank you also to Jan. It was incredible to see like what you are, like how you are imagining the future of design tokens. Yeah, probably already, or you are already there. So thank you so much. The official part is over. Now it's still time for some tinkering, Q&A, and if you want to show more demos or anything
one important
else.
question
you also,
still.
Yeah, we need to answer. You need to answer the AI question.
Exactly.
People
I think that's
really,
still missing.
yeah, deserve now to know.
Okay.
How can I keep up with AI as a designer and not get replaced?
So what's the big difference between AI and us at the moment, right? AI is creating arbitrary results. We've seen this in Figma when they launched their AI thing. You got like Apple products out or different like major companies design systems output. Or you got random stuff if you look at Midjourney, right? It's so hard to keep things consistent. It's nearly impossible to say like, hey, I actually like really want that one style and I want to follow that style. And to do this, you either need to have a very specific prompt and be lucky that you nail it, right? But you don't have this knowledge at the moment. But what if you have this knowledge written down in some format that is machine readable, right? And that's exactly what graphs do. They give you a machine readable format of your logics, of your decisions. And we've tried this a few times already, like feed a graph. There's actually like one little AI thing on top, kind of like that lets you post a graph to AI and it will just explain it to you. And it works really good. So just imagine you don't need to write your full documentation manually because you actually have the logic built in a graph. You press one button And it can explain how you got to your font scale. It can explain how your colors are built. It can explain the decisions you went through. It can answer questions based on that. And how is this moving forward? It's kind of like, why are we designers kind of like, or what do we need to upscale on our skill tree, kind of like in our gaming environment to still stay on top, right? It's kind of like that ability to really nail how is everything built, because choosing arbitrary decisions everybody can do, right? But explaining why you got to that decision is the hard part. And that's what the graph engine allows you to once kind of give you a surface to build this decision and also a surface to discuss this decision. You don't need to kind of like eyeball and like have discussions with the developers like, why is this color blue, or like, why is this black? Well, this is the decision tree, how we got there. Then we have something to argue about. We're not just talking about one hex value, we're talking about like the way we got there. Kind of like, if it's a brand decision, fine, right? Okay, yeah, it's a brand decision. Have fun. But like maybe that like, why is that hover state exactly looking like that in dark mode, and why is it looking different in light mode, and why is it not getting darker where all other colors get lighter, for example, on a button? Yeah, maybe I don't have enough lightness in the darks anymore to go darker. So I need to go lighter to be able to show accessible interaction states. And maybe that is the logic, right? Maybe you don't have a luminosity of like 20 or 30 left in the dark to give you this differentiation. So being able to build your logic kind of and make that usable, you're one step closer. But this is the first step, this foundation. You can build this a lot of layers up, right? We can build components like that. We can build procedural UI based on this, because suddenly AI can alter your decisions, and you do A/B testing just on 10 different permutations or versions of your UI. Automatically, you don't need to be there, right? And it can automatically create new patterns, new components for you based on your logic, because it understands the full decision, how you got there. And that's going to be where hopefully, or where we think people will store their knowledge. It's also the piece that like prevents knowledge strain in a company. If you look at bigger enterprises, corporates, or small companies, right? That one designer that built the full design system left the company. Always really fun for the people that follow up, because they have no idea how they got there. And this lets you just store it, and you can still read it. If you inherit this from somebody, you can read it. Mike.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Mike wants to join us. Just a second before people leave.
Sure.
I just want to drop Romina's the design system guide for everyone who's just starting or who wants to learn about design tokens, like the fundamentals. This really cool free resource. It's the design system .guide. Highly recommended to have a look. And also we have like so many wonderful people who joined us today. Please make sure to connect with them. And we have a lot of questions. And I think the Token Studio team will come back and to answer some more. We will also send you the link to the Miro board to all the files, right? Marco?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, that's it. Really now for with the official part. Now we'd like to welcome Mike from Token Studio, the CEO of HEMA. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Sil. How are you? How's it
Good,
going?
good. Yeah, how's life in the Himalayas?
Yeah,
Start?
it's getting really cold. Not too much snow, but it's minus 13, 14 right now. So I have a nice fire burning, and yeah, it's lovely here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great
I was
to see.
listening to Marco, and I think this whole AI topic, right? It's really fascinating, and I think to really maybe simplify what Marco said. AI is great for exploration, and it creates it's a random number generator, right? And we can give it some inputs, but I mean, try to get something out of it the same 5 times, right? It's not going to happen. Or try to get it to work within constraints, right? And that's what a brand is, right? A brand right now in design system, brands are becoming quite constrained, I would say, in what you can do, right? There's a lot of limitations because of technological barriers that we have design tokens, they're becoming a lot and complex, and we find it hard to bring in this sort of dynamicism that we had, or the creativity that we had. The promise of AI is that we can do a lot of that, but we don't want it to go overboard and do things that are not the brand. And I think that's where really striking the balance comes in, that we create systems and that an AI can understand where, okay, this is the intention of the brand, but it doesn't describe every single use case, but it describes the field in which it can move around and create. So I think when these things start working together, as a designer, you probably partly move in the position maybe of more of a creative director or a curator, right? Of experiences that are driven by a system that you build, and that then starts working for you in a predictable way. And then you can really start imagining how real-time feedback, right? Imagine that your product is generating data, it's live, right? And you're getting feedback, data is coming back in. AI can understand the data very well. On the other hand, we have a system that really clearly defines what adaptations to UI are allowed, and now we can potentially start iterating experiences at the speed of feedback, right? And that puts you just in a position, I think, to iterate much faster and to really work on the things that matter, rather than, spending a lot of time on doing pretty tedious, repetitive jobs to finally get there. So I think that's really the promise that we are trying to deliver on, and that we're trying to put system in place for, so that eventually this automation will really put you in a space of accelerating, better customer experience at the end of the day. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Anyone else who wants to come live and have a chat with the Token Studio team?
Feel free to drop in and ask questions.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Yes.
Yes.
My question is, so syncing choices that we've made manually so far with the devs have proved to be a little bit challenging. My question is, how are we syncing now the logic choices with those dev teams? And very specifically, what if they're already wrapping different logic around those colors and those font scales and those things?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. So I think fundamentally, right, if you think of what we try to do with the design system, is get rid of multiple interpretations of a truth, right? So we're always looking after a single source of truth.
Mm-hmm.
So by definitions, two implementations that are slightly different from what we intend is not one single source of truth. So that is, in my term, a temporary problem. That is something as an organization that we should try to overcome in the long run, but that cannot always happen immediately. So there you will still be having the same problem that you would potentially have with having different setup of variables versus the code, right? So how are you going to solve that? The graph doesn't really change that for you. However, what we have seen is that developers tend to really love graphs because they very closely or absolutely represent how they think in code, or how they usually solve problems in code. So the graph engine and with the companies we've been working with so far, where we've actually built design systems end to end already, fully running on graphs, we've seen that it actually brought engineers much closer to the design process, and actually was much more willing to adopt these logics in code as well, because they made sense. They were based on logic, they were reproducible, you can write test cases for them, and they are under the hood code. So that's really what we have seen. Of course, we're in the very early days. We're just, running pilot for a year now, and now really going live with the product. So having, now hundreds or thousands of companies moving in and using this tool is really going to tell us, of course, how this is going to work. But I see it very positive.
Awesome. Okay, and so maybe, or potentially, we think that they'll respond positively to like seeing something like a graph engine and those sort of things. Maybe that's nothing to fear, almost the positive of this.
Yeah, and also to just add to this, so Graph Engine is also really a developer-first tool. Okay, so the Graph Engine is fully API based, so developers can interact with it directly from their code environment. You can even run graphs inside VS Code, so they can maintain them as code. You can execute them there, so it's really flexible for developers as well. So Yeah, there's a lot of thought that has gone into the developer side and the developer experience, especially because at the end of the day, your product is code. So that's where the ultimate performance needs to lie. So yeah, it's been built up from there, really, to be honest. And as you can see, some of the things in the graph engine today are pretty tech savvy, I would say. Luckily, we have Sam with us, who's going to make this really much more designer friendly. Yeah,
Awesome.
but so yeah, it's really where we came from. So I think, you know, now it's for us as a community to figure out, right, that how do we bring this into a realm where it's a collaborative platform where designers and engineers can truly work together for the first time in a sort of neutral environment.
Yep. Beautiful. Thank you.
An additional question, kind of adding on to that, maybe you're making this so much more accessible to more people. Marco, I think you had mentioned, you know, exporting some of the information that's kind of getting finalized to kind of back up the rationale of the reasoning of what you're building out. How would this be applicable, what you're exporting, to make sure it's translatable to, you know, content writers? You're putting it together in a platform, you know, backing up the reasoning of the data and information that you're producing. So making it applicable to other teams and more people.
Yeah.
Who may not understand it.
No, absolutely right. Like reading a graph is challenging, right? There is, as I shortly mentioned, even a feature already in that lets you explain that graph from AI, and it is pretty spot on, to be honest. Like we've seen, like, because it is like really just following logic, kind of like it can explain this quite in detail already, like how it got there, and you can even ask questions about details. I think that's actually where we're moving in the future anyways, like where content is more agnostic and gets interpreted for the person, right? If you look at, everybody has different styles of how they like to consume stuff, especially about, like, if you look at accessibility, or like maybe you're dyslexic and you wanted one specific font that it helps you read text, or you like like everything to be a bit more muted. You don't like these vibrant colors because like they just don't work with you. The same way works with graphs, right? It's actually just the interpretation how you need it for yourself. And the good thing is it's a data format, so it can be interpreted in different formats. And AI helps a lot with actually this interpretation. Also with building it, right? You don't need to come up with that math. Just ask GPT, like, hey, I have this color scale. What is the math behind it? How can I get there? It will give you the logic. Then you build two nodes and you have it. In the future, we just prompt it or like draw it, like teal draw, something like that, and it will build your graph. And then you can also like have easier access to building graphs, kind of like, and you don't need to be that color expert that needs to understand every space and how things change there and everything. So I think that's more where we are going to move, like where the graph is just a technical representation kind of it. And then we can interpolate it or interpret in different formats kind of for the different consumers.
Cool, thanks.
Thank
So what do we
you.
have?
Anyone else who wants to come live and have a chat with us?
Actually, I have a question.
Hi.
Yes.
So really great tool. So really nicely done. But I have a question because I work as like design system consultant and for my clients, and I often like part of the design teams. And so this tool, it's even for me, it looks like, oh my God, super complicated. So how I can learn this stuff. And you mentioned earlier that you can maybe like hand it over to an AI, and the AI writes the documentation, everything.
Yeah.
But do you plan like to maybe it's to make it more simple, more easier to understand? Because like when I would leave the company as a consultant and leave my clients with like this graph engine alone, and they see it and it maybe just like blows their mind and they think, oh fuck, we need him back because we don't understand it, what he done. So do you plan of like I don't know, like some like onboarding tutorial, like how like it's more accessible to everyone without like this, I need like 4 weeks of understanding the graph engine or even more.
Yeah. So we have a few concepts up our sleeves, but okay, Mike, you go ahead. Kind of like.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's a really great question, right? And I also want to just emphasize that this is the early phase, I think, of a bit of a shift of how we think about generating design data. I also think that this will be an ongoing shift in the talent pool we see in our industry, because design tokens were very scary and new not so long ago, right? And now everybody can manage variables and design tokens and all those things, right? And we had the same problem. So I think this is always, as new technology and new tools come in, there will always be a time where it's new, and we recognize that. At the same time, we are also working on this idea that not everybody needs to build these graphs. So this complex graph that Marco just had, you can store that as a single node and then publish it in our marketplace. And tomorrow you can pick up that node and use all this beautiful logic that Marco has built and click 3 nodes from 3 other people together, build this whole color scale, right? And as a community, we will be able to share all these little pieces like plugins or like templates, like graphs, essentially, right? So that is really the idea of building this ecosystem. And we've already been having some jam sessions with for example, with Nate Baldwin to build some graphs, to build Proportio. And we have already Leonardo in there. Right, and we've been jamming with some other folks who are deep into creating color logics and publish articles about it, and we're trying to capture all these things actually in graphs that can be reused. So that's really the idea, and then of course AI is going to come in, and that will both help. We already have some MVP running that probably will come out later this year, which will really help you to explain your graphs in real time while you're working with them, where you can basically just say, okay, I have these colors and just talk to it for a bit of what you need, right? And it will build the graph for you and you can kind of play with it. So there will be a lot more assistance around it. So I think in these 2 areas, we can really make things easier. And of course, by just drastically improving the user experience, right? It's a very early stage project and there's so much we can do to make it more intuitive yeah.
Yeah,
So,
also as designers, please feel free to if you want to contribute, right? Like even on design or UX or UI, right? Like please, it's an open source project. Everybody can contribute to it. We are not like the only ones that won't need to kind of like be there.
Sorry, how I can contribute? Like, do you have like a mail or is there like some place I don't know.
We have a Slack channel for the graph engine.
Okay.
That's the best place to start, I feel. And then really just even giving feedback is like already the first contribution that we can need, right? Everybody's feedback is helping us shape the UX and UI. And we know there's a lot of potential, things we can do. We build it from the technical level up. And now we know that there's a lot of potential we can do on UI UX, which we already have great ideas. We need to implement them over time. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us kind of on that topic. As Mike said, one thing, right? Sorry, go.
No, yeah, in the broader sense of contributing, right? So it's an open source project on GitHub. There's documentation. It can be better, but there's a bit of a getting started, right? So yeah, well, every project has to start somewhere, right? So, but on the technical side, the documentation is actually pretty good, better than on the user side right now. So anybody who even is keen to dab their fingers into that a little bit, like Marco said, even if you're missing a node, right, we're happy to build it for you because we do it really quick. But you can build them yourself with a few lines of code most of the time, right? So if you have a little bit of engineering skills, don't be intimidated by the size of the project, because actually the things that you can contribute often are very easy. Or just create an issue or reach out to us on Slack, right? And we really love to collaborate with early users and really grow the product together, right? It's ultimately it will only be successful if it's carried by a community of people that contribute to it and use it, right? So yeah, really excited about all feedback and people who want to contribute.
Yeah, so shortly to your point of yes, it's super intimidating if you look at the color graph I've built, right? But you don't need to build that. I'm going to share this as a kind of community file. You drag one node and you use it. So at the beginning of the talk, we looked at Leonardo, we looked at Proportio, we looked at Atmos, right? Just imagine you're building your design system with 5 nodes. You have one for your dimensions, you have one for your color, you have one for typography, and then you plug that together. The cool thing is you can still look inside what's happening, right? You don't need to have this black box of this is how I create my color, because it will be there as the flow. So the nice thing is for somebody that doesn't need to understand the full depths of it, they can just watch the overview. This is okay. We're using that tool for that. We're using that tool for that. At the moment, we're doing this jumping manually between different tools, creating that output, copy paste, lose that. The idea is that everything is end-to-end connected and can be adjusted by inputs, right? So why not have your material design system creation, right? based on top of like 5 inputs should work. And then you can brand it for different teams. Or maybe, like as I said, you're consulting for multiple companies. What's the, like, you can build a boilerplate kind of like for you that you take to a company and say, hey, this is actually my boilerplate for kickstarting a design system very fast. I use these 5 tools kind of in there. That's there. We're just going to use it. Then we're going to add like your 20 input tokens. You're done. In reality, to represent a brand in tokens, if you have the logic on top, you probably need like 30 to 50 design tokens if these logics are like adjustable to really build a full design. Because, for example, all the shapes is probably just roundness that you adjust, and then maybe you have pill shape or not. 2 properties, and you can actually adjust this by, okay, I have like a large component, a medium component, and then you have the different border radius that you need for that. So think a bit more about that in the future, where these compounds will be mostly what you'll be going to work with. But if you want to go really deep, you can build your own logic. You can spend hours and days. I go in there and like I'm like lost for 5 hours straight, and then I'm like, oh man, I've made this awesome surface logic that does automatic color calculation, keeps contrast ready, but it looks that like my own colors are not too far away from each other and all of that. I'm super happy about that, but that's like not everybody needs to go like, okay, fuck, I'm gonna spend like 5 hours straight not looking anywhere else and going there. So that's like not what everybody needs to do. But there are some people that will do it. And yeah, a good inspiration, for example, don't know how many of you have used Blender. Just take a look at Blender's geometry nodes. It's following the same principle. It's an amazing technology. It uses a node-based system, and you can build crazy things with it.
That's what
Also
it
based
reminded me
repeatable
of.
logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah.
Thanks.
I think Ivan is there.
Hey, Marco. Hey, everyone. So I have a few questions regarding the presentation. So do you guys have a experience with supporting systems, design systems that support multiple brands, teams, products, languages, etc.? And if so, could you highlight some key selling points? I guess many of us who require multi-brand solutions often need to present this point to secure licensing and obtain budget approvals. So that would be my big question. And beside that, I'm interested in if you can share and explain the new pricing details and following that, will the Token Studio plugin for Figma be included in Token Studio license? I mean, there is a chance that you don't need it personally, but if you do, then maybe other designers can have advantage using plugin, and maybe it's less complex for them. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll take your questions in reverse. So first of all, yeah, the plugin that is there today, that's a project. It's an open source project. It's been there. It will keep existing as an independent plugin. And then there is our studio platform, which is really the place where we have brought together all the technologies that we have built. So not just the graph engine, but the entire token management. We've been building Style Dictionary for the last 1.5 years, right? So the entire piece of pipelines, that is all there. And the graph engine, of course, in Studio. So that's really a separate SaaS solution that we are putting into the market. We are starting to roll out now. Yeah, that includes, so that basically works different. The early access launching customer offer that is there right now is basically an organization's plan, which means that it's not restricted on the number of users or projects or design systems that you run. So it's really an organization-based plan, which includes the connection to your design tools. So this will connect to Figma, to Penpot. We already have implementations coming up for Blender, even PowerPoint, Framer. So you'll be able to use this data everywhere. So this is way beyond just the Figma plugin. The Token Studio for Figma is a Figma plugin, and it does that. It will keep doing that. And then Studio is really a central hub that connects with, in the future, many of the tools that are there. Okay, we will release in the future, and in the near future, we will go into public release after we have onboarded all the users that are already signed up in early access around March probably. We will release a larger variety of pricing tiers, which will also include an individual tier, which is obviously at a much lower pricing, and other levels of organization tiers, and also an enterprise tier. So we will release those tiers, probably somewhere next month or early March. So that will be there. To just mention again, the Graph Engine is an open source project. It's free, so you can use it, right? And Style Dictionary, absolutely free project, will stay free forever. Studio is just an end-to-end platform that brings all these things together and gives you the convenience of using all this technology in one place, integrated with all the tools you love using. I think that may let me first pause here for a second. Does that answer your questions on the differences between the products and the pricing?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm aware of a difference between them, but I can still see I mean, if you have a Token Studio for Figma Pro licensing, right? And you have a Token Studio as a separate solution for, I guess, SaaS, primarily SaaS companies. I can still see the value using a Token Studio for Figma plugin as if you have a team or 50 more designers, then some of them can use plugin to easy switch some things that Figma
you will have
constraints
access
on.
to the plugin. So if you use Studio, you have an unlimited number of plugin users that can use the data in Figma or any other tool.
Oh, okay,
And
awesome.
you don't have
Thank
to
you.
pay for it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Cool.
Okay.
And about multi-brand systems and maybe some sell points, do you have an experience on that side?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest challenge in running multi-brand, multi-platform, multi-device, white label, personalization, everything systems is that there's an absolute explosion of tokens usually, and a huge complexity in accommodating all the edge cases that eventually need to be accommodated across all those different brands or platforms, or all these exceptions that we have usually coming along. To do that, and it's not just the initial effort to get that to work, but also to maintain that, and especially to onboard, because usually when you're in this multi, I'm assuming that this is a dynamic situation where new brands are coming, acquisitions happen, brands are moving out. That is usually what happens in these ecosystems. So what is really of the essence is onboarding, because you have an acquisition, a brand comes in, and now you want to run it on your design system instead of inheriting a legacy system. So once you have this graph-based system in place, like Marco said, and we have case studies for this already running on Graph Engine, where we are able with between 20 and 50 input values to nearly onboard any brand on a headless design system. So if you start thinking about the scaling of that and how then you can nearly automatically generate documentation because you're following the same underlying principle system, and you kind of tailor it towards which parts of the system are implemented for the brand. So all this is starting to stay connected, and the efficiency gain of that and your day-to-day operations of that, depending on the number of brands, you can leave a calculation on that, but it's in hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars of savings per year that you're going to run into if you have this truly connected and automated and integrated throughout your pipelines and your tools.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that was the whole point, right? Thank you for answering. If you could, in some future work, and I guess that's for all of you in team, if you have think about selling points that are not related to engineering logic. I'm thinking of if I want to sell this story, I need to sell it to people who don't really know. They just get the tokens, and they don't really understand the purpose of a system and managing 10,000 tokens and problems we have. So if you get some good, cool stories there while you're doing that, keep in mind of us and try to document some story or share with us, because it will help us to sell the work you're doing and eventually get to the licensing, right? So thank you, Mike, for sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and that was a great insight. Thank you for sharing that, and we'll definitely work on that. And we'll share those stories.
Do you have any insights how other people are managing the tokens or the variables in Figma? If they have like 100 plus variables, is there even like how can I manage it? Or some of them have like 500,000 of tokens. There's no way to do this in variables, right?
Yeah, variables becomes really, really hard. Yeah.
Versioning is amazing in variables. Yeah, works really well if you have like multiple teams working on a single Figma file. Yeah, maybe not the best idea to use variables as the versioning platform or managing platform. Kind of like it's awesome for consumption. Maybe not ideal for other pieces.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is there any workaround right now? So what can I use now if I have like 100 plus variables already?
I mean, you can always take the current plugin already, right? Import them into tokens, kind of like, and then they're already like, you can sync them to any storage provider that we have available, kind of, and then still stay in sync, but use tokens, kind of like the plugin can already export variables quite nicely, right? So this works pretty awesome. If you're starting out from code and you already have CSS, it's quite easy to convert CSS vars to tokens and then just structure them a bit, kind of like, and use them as a variable source of truth, kind of like. But there, I would always like stay close with your developers. That's the main goal, right? Because you're like working with them. Developers have variables, not variables, Figma variables, but like variables for the last 20 plus years. They know how to deal with them. They've worked with them for quite some time. It's nothing new for them. So like it's always good to just stay close to your developers. And also like I think for every designer in the future, it's always good to just understand the platforms you're working with on a technical level. This is one thing that every design system designer, in my opinion, needs to do is like be on top of the platform you're like kind of working with to also understand what are the technical limitations. At the moment, a lot of limitations we have in design are introduced by Figma's limitations, but not by HTML, CSS, for example. You can do a lot more already in the web than what Figma allows. And we're getting more and more features. Actually, like the web standard is moving quite fast in CSS at the moment, where you have container queries, which are awesome, kind of like where we can build contextual awareness, where we can build all of this kind of like already.
Ooh, contextual awareness.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, because at some point I'm just afraid of adding more variables because it's getting too complicated, to be honest, and too hard to manage. So in the beginning, it's nice. It's very kind of
So
yeah,
can I ask you a
straightforward.
question?
Yeah.
Why do they become hard to manage? Like, what do you think is mostly the reason that we end up with variables that have become hard to manage? What's the main challenge?
I think because there's no versioning, and if there are like multiple teams and they're all like kind of creating and editing variables, it's getting really a huge mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean, fundamentally, I think that was why, and it's already almost 3 years ago now that we actually started work on the platform, right? Always this idea that all this logic and the plugin was great, right? And it does a fantastic job, but there's only so much you can do in a plugin, right? So I think just how even we use a platform like GitHub, right, to do these kind of things, because it's not just creating a version. We've learned that Figma has some sort of versions and some sort of branches, right? But at the end of the day, you see there's just so much more that's going on, and that's where I really think there's place for like a central platform that takes care of these things, where you maintain those logics in a neutral place, where product owners, other stakeholders, engineers, designers can come together, right? And manage those things, because at the end of the day, it's not just design data, right? It's used in Figma, but it's also used by engineers. So how does this connect to my pipeline? What style dictionary configuration is actually used to transform these tokens to, let's say, iOS. And so it's not just about managing my tokens and they become complex, because there's all these other steps. So I think sort of pulling that all together, like, something is living in my code with my developer, something is sitting somewhere in GitHub in a pipeline, some process happening in the plugin. We're trying to get that all in a central dashboard so that you can really get that. And we've not been able to really show that yet. But eventually, you really have an elegant slice where you can just see, okay, this is all my connections to my tools. These are the platforms I'm supporting. These are the pipelines that are connected to it. These are the repositories where it's going to. These are the products where it's being used in, right? And you have that end-to-end sort of overview of how the entirety of your data and your tokens is working together. And I think that will bring a lot of clarity to teams, not just on the structure of the design data or design tokens or the logic behind it, but really the overall process. And then you start seeing the benefits of being able to see, where are these tokens actually used in my product, right? So in the code, where do they end up? Are they used correctly? How often are these tokens actually used? Are deprecated tokens still being used? That is all information that we want to surface very easily, and that's so hard today. So I think once you have that central picture of all the data, a lot of these struggles will become a lot more manageable, hopefully.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else who wants to come live and have a chat? Because I have another question. You're also working together with Penpod. Can you maybe share some insights, or how you see maybe the future of Penpod, or even the future of Figma and their features?
I would love to comment on that for a bit. And if anybody else wants to chat, please, I'll just chat till then probably. But happy to let somebody else take over. But yeah, Penpod. So to really, really quick rewind. So about 1.5 years ago, Pablo, the CEO of Penpod, reached out to me and Jan. And we had this amazing discussion about the future of design and design tooling and ecosystem and open source. And that was just sort of like a love at first sight conversation. And from there, we decided to start working together, or Pablo invited us to basically build the entire design tokens or design data implementation for Penpod. So this has been a pure open source collaboration. And we've been working for the last 1.5 years to basically bring everything that Token Studio for Figma has natively into Penpod, absolutely free, 100% open source, including storage providers, native Git syncs, and of course, it's direct design tokens. So you're using full DTCG design tokens, all the tokens that are there on spec directly in Penpod, no conversion to any native Penpod platform. So we are this close to launching that. You can already try it out on early.penpod.dev. Don't build any projects there. It's a demo environment, but you can already check it out. In the coming weeks, there will be an official Penpod release, which will release the first iteration of design tokens in Penpod. We don't have all the design tokens in yet. They will be all there very soon. So we're releasing design token types in short iterations afterwards. There's already an import and export for design tokens in DTCG format. There's no automated sync yet, but those will all follow very soon. We're basically getting the first release out, and then very, very quick iterations will follow with many, many cool features to come. We will support, of course, sync with Studio. You will be able to sync your design tokens between Figma and Penpod. You run your design system in both, right? So all those things will become very, very easy to do. And Studio, of course, will facilitate in the process, for example, of converting your data to Figma variables, and Penpod can read them natively, so you won't need to convert them. But yeah, so that is really cool, I think. Penpod is evolving really, really fast. The team has been doing amazing work at Penpod. It's really mind-blowing what they have achieved over the last year. So if you haven't checked it out for a while, it's probably a lot more mature than you remember it to be. And the components have been updated. Soon you'll have the equivalent of component variants and all those other good things, right, that are there. So I think, you know, it's very, very close to being as fully fledged as you would need for building very decent design systems. Yeah, there have been some performance glitches in terms of the UI and the canvas. I'm really, really happy to say that they're building an amazing new rendering engine that will be in soon. So it's becoming super performance. So yeah, I think 2025 is sort of the year that Penpot is really, you know, at par as a professional, you know, design tool for building design systems, especially very close to code. So, you know, you have full flexbox, grid layout, all those kind of things. So it already has features that are like way ahead of Figma as well. So I'm super excited about, you know, what we can see from Penpot in 2025 and also see what users start building. Plugin ecosystem is open now. So the plugins have launched, so you can build plugins now for Penpot. So yeah, a lot has happened in the last months, really. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Penpot seriously recently, I would really love to encourage you to do it. And bombard us with feedback. And the Penpot team, just like us, they are very, very friendly, fully open source. They love feedback. So yeah, that would be amazing to hear what you guys think about it. And yo, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. And like, what's your take on where Figma is heading, if you want to answer that?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no.
Like, because I see a lot of, you know, stuff for PMs and AI stuff. I don't see really like any big design system features or anything like that.
See what's going on at Figma, right? Like, so let's start by saying that this is, of course, always pure speculation. But I think if you look at Figma has become like a massive game changer in the whole design industry, right? They really revolutionized the way we just do the things we do today, right? And many of the things that have happened after that would have never happened without, you know, being able to, for the first time, really collaborate in such a powerful way. What has also happened, of course, that you know, that they have captured almost the entire market, right? I mean, there's a little bit of Sketch, there's a little bit of this, right? And now there's a lot of new players coming out. How does a business operate, right? Like you can only monetize an existing user base so much, right? And what we have seen right now is that you know, there's also an expansion happening. We saw FigJam, we see Slides, right? So they have done acquisitions in terms of no-code tools, right? What was the company they acquired a year ago? You know, some of the AI tools. So it's looking like it's broadening the ecosystem, right? And that makes a lot of sense because if companies are building their fundamentals of their design language, their design systems in Figma, of course we want to use that in other places as well. And that's a very natural evolution because that's exactly what we are working on as well, right? We want to make that data available for you everywhere, right? So that you can use it in all your tools, not just Figma. And Figma is doing that through their own ecosystem by building a note-taking tool or a whiteboarding tool and by building a slides tool. And I think we might see more of that ecosystem, right? Because the PowerPoint market is a very big market too, right? So I think the approach is a little different in that sense, right? Are you going to capture the tools or do you open the ecosystem? Yeah, I think that's fundamentally probably yeah, what I see Figma doing, right? Like just expanding into the ecosystem of tools that are used in the organization to bring that data across, right? And Slides is of course a perfect example of that. Yeah, on the other hand, like, you know, where we stand more is about ecosystem, and Figma is part of that ecosystem, but we would love it if all the tools in the ecosystem can play along nice, and that you have that freedom to choose those tools. And that's where variables is sticking behind a bit, right? So we've got the promise like more than 1.5 years ago from the team that it was going to be a DTCG format, right? But we haven't really seen that promise really come out, right? Of a genuine attempt to make this sync really easy. So today, and thank you for that. Many of you use Token Studio to do that for you. But yeah, I think I'm just looking forward to the day where we no longer need to build a plugin to just get the basic data in and out. So I think that's where I just hope that Figma is gonna, yeah, I guess soon open up their data a little bit more, so that we really can deliver on that ecosystem promise. But because at the end of the day, every team should be able to decide which are the best tool for each job and use those together. Yeah, so that's where I hope we will go. And I do think Figma is aiming for that as well. But at the moment, it feels a bit slow in where we're heading. I agree.
Nice.
Can I share one short video, because Jan just mentioned it? I mean, we can spoil some things here, right? Mike said we are talking about different platforms, right? Since our plugins will be more lightweight, we are really platform agnostic. Figma is not the only part. This is just a little exploration we did in InDesign to say, hey, why not use design tokens in InDesign for your print materials and get it there? And actually, like, super performant because it watches in InDesign work amazingly well. So suddenly you have theming in your InDesign files with CMYK support and everything. So just to kind of like give you a bit of like teasing of what's gonna happen. Yeah. Can I stop
Nice.
sharing?
That's awesome.
How do I stop sharing?
On the top.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. So we'll be one of many consumers in the future. Like the first plugin has all the managing features, but if the plugins only tailor towards consumption, we can actually like do a lot more.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any more questions? Anybody who wants to come live, or what's the plan? Should we wrap up soon?
Seems like a
you
good
want to-
time after 2 hours.
Yeah.
No, I think I want to add something, right? Like, I hope some of you like had a good entry. We're gonna work on some more content to get there. Give us some time, kind of like to work on it. But like, there will be regular sessions. Actually, there are some awesome token challenges already that you posted on the board in Miro. If you have like more, please put them there, because I will take a look at them, and like I will tackle a few of them all like in the next streams that we're gonna do. For example, one I really would like build is like find a starting point to build a token MVP for a typography system. So I already had one talk up for fluid typography. Like I love this topic kind of like, and I explored this like a lot more deeper now already. And yeah, like would be nice to just show like how this works. There's a graph that I can share with everybody that builds this fluid typography for you. And yeah, gives you all the tokens you need for fluid for CSS and static for Figma with the right breakpoints and everything implemented already. So yeah, you can share this on the Miro Board too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we also have some really, really cool events and meetups coming up. In 10 days, there will be, no, sorry, in a week, there will be a really cool meetup in Seattle, organized by Amy. Amy's also here in the stream. Thank you so much for organizing this. If you're around Seattle, make sure to join. It will take place at Alaska Airlines. And we have our workshop with Nathan Curtis. We have another cool event in Berlin at Sum Up Berlin. If you're like around Berlin, make sure to join that. And we are bringing back design systems, F stories. So where we basically wanted to share the failures to learn from them, because most often you only see the really cool some really cool documentations, but behind the scenes it's usually most often a mess. So if you're interested in learning about that, make sure to join us. You can find all the events if you go to intodesignsystems.com and click on meetup. So there will lead you to the event calendar. So yeah, hope to see you at one of the next meetups or at the conference or workshop. Thank you so much to Marco, Jan, and Mike, and the whole Token Studio team, to Sam for like answering so many questions in the chat. I think we had almost 300 people joining this call. So many people are interested in this. Thank you so much for like showing us a potential future of design tokens, and you are already living in the future, right? The Token Studio team is like very disruptive, innovative. Thank you so much for doing all this hard work, so we can at one point have also all these nice things I really like the idea with the marketplace or however you want to call it. So if I could grab some of your notes and graphs to build something, that would be really cool.
Thank you very
Wait to
much for
see
having
that.
us. It was
Yeah.
really awesome. Yeah, if anybody has questions, there's like InterDesign Systems Slack, there's our Slack. Feel free to reach out on one of them, kind of like most of us are on both of them. And yeah, be open about questions, suggest things, kind of like everything, like we are there to help. Kind of like we are very supportive to our community, and we also count on our community to be there for us. Kind of like like we are very like community driven. And yeah, I hope that I could give a bit of insights into Graph Engine. We just scratched the surface, I can tell you. Like we didn't even open all the folders on the left side. So yeah, just explore it, test around. I'll share some of the links of the graphs, kind of like, and you can look forward to a lot of changes in the Graph Engine actually happening, kind of like giving you more abilities and making it easier for you to consume in the future.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone. See you at the next event. Enjoy your day, and wish you all the best with your design token setup. And if you're an absolute beginner, like I've mentioned, please go to the design system .guide by Romina. There you can learn a lot about design tokens. This session was very advanced, but we want to see this kind of content so we can, innovate and improve and move forward. Like the industry can move a little bit forward, and only like, there's a lot of content on how to name tokens. I know that's important as well, but we want to show you really some advanced and futuristic stuff as well. All right. See you soon, everyone. Enjoy your day, and thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
night. Bye bye.